Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. I'm here today with Katrina Bentley, LMSW. Katrina is from the small town of Notasulga, Alabama. Katrina was introduced to social work while working as a case manager at a community mental health center. Katrina obtained her Master of Social Work from Troy University, Dothan, and became licensed at the master's level in 2020. Her experience is primarily in mental health, but also includes child protective services and case management within the health insurance system. Katrina currently works for Humana as a behavioral health specialist. Katrina is a daughter, sister, friend, and recently became a mother to a beautiful baby girl, Cameron. Welcome to the show, Katrina.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
I'm so glad you said yes. Katrina, congratulations on becoming a mama.
Thank you.
That's so wonderful. I'm wondering, sometimes I hear a lot, and I'm sure you probably do too, that a lot of childhood memories are invoked when we become parents. And I'm just curious, like, what childhood memories have been invoked since you became a mom?
Well, since the holiday season is coming up, I'm super, super excited to share that with Cameron. I remember my dad hanging up Christmas lights and my mom doing the decorations and just things like that around the holiday time. So I'm super, super excited to do that with her. I'm thinking about themes and Halloween costumes and just what colors we want to do, and I just want to do it all with her because we celebrated everything in my house growing up. I like as soon as the weather changed, I'm like, are we gonna get the Christmas stuff down? Are we gonna get the pumpkins and stuff down? So I'm just really excited about that. I really want to maintain that tradition, but also create a new special one with her.
I love that new special traditions. I
Yeah.
love that idea. I was going to ask a completely different question well, I'll still say it. So you're one of those people. No.
Yeah, I
I
am.
love it. We were driving by, my son and I were driving through our neighborhood and we saw the Halloween pumpkins up and we were like, already? And so, yeah, that is fun. You're a fun mom. But when you said that, I was thinking, Katrina, about keeping the old tradition, keeping some of the old traditions
Mhm.
because you enjoy them, but starting new traditions. And I don't know where this came from, but it feels very important that we don't necessarily get rid of all of the old traditions because they've sustained us. We grew up with them.
Mhm.
They kept us stable, but also be very intentional about starting new traditions as well. And so
Right.
globally, maybe we could all not necessarily get rid of everything, but embrace.
Yes, it's a part of who I am, and I really want to
Yeah,
share that with her. So
yeah, that's
I'm
beautiful.
excited about that.
You're a fun mom.
I want to be. I want to be. Still have boundaries, but I
Mhm.
do want to be a fun mom.
Yeah, yeah. The Since we're on childhood, I'm wondering before we get into your social work journey, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
It's so funny because I wanted to be a nurse. My mom is a CNA. One of my sisters is a LPN. My other sister is a CNA. So that's all I seen, the scrubs and just taking care of people. So I didn't give any other career a second thought. I was like, I'm gonna be a nurse. It was really popular by the time I was graduating. A lot of the girls were declaring nurses as their major. But especially Troy University, their nursing program was really popular, and they would tell us like you could get a job anywhere if you graduate from Troy nursing program. So I was like, hey, I'm sold. I didn't think about anything else. So I went on to college, and I did my prereqs for nursing. And if you know anything about Troy nursing program, it's hard to get in. And I got in on my first try, and I was like, in nursing school, I'm ready to go get my uniform. And we had to do something where we was inserting catheters. And I was like, oh, I didn't think this far ahead. Like this would be something that I would be doing. I thought I would just put on the scrubs and take your blood pressure or something like that. So I was like, this is not for me. I want to help people, but I want to do it in a different way. So I didn't tell my mom or my dad. I didn't tell my family at all. I just switched my major. I switched my major to rehabilitation. So it was so crazy how I went from wanting to be a nurse to like actually living out my passion as a social worker or my dreams. I didn't even vision this for me growing up. I didn't even think this was possible because you don't really hear like social workers when I was coming up. But yeah, nursing. I wanted to be a nurse when I was growing up.
I love that. And I love how hopefully we're getting the word out about social work. We're making it a little bit more public
Right.
so people know that you could actually do okay, not do okay, but actually do well being a social worker. You know what is so funny? When you were talking about when they pulled out the catheter, I was a hospice social worker. I've never wanted to be a nurse. It never occurred to me until I
Mm-hmm.
became a hospice social worker. I was already a social worker or doing the whole social work thing. And the nurse that I got to do my ride-alongs with was a
Mm-hmm.
psychiatric nurse and a travel nurse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to become a nurse. But here we are in this hospice because, she's in Las Vegas. She's doing all these amazing things.
Uh-huh.
She's doing travel. And here I am, a little bitty hospice nurse working in rural Greenville, Alabama. It's rural, rural, rural.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulls out a catheter or something. I don't know. But this little lady, it was hot in that house. There was no, AC or anything. It was hot and she needed something removed.
It probably
And
took a
that
catheter.
amazing Las Vegas psychiatric, nurse got put her gloves on. She had just had her hair done, had beautiful curls in her hair. And we're in that house and she's telling me to hold her hands and she's pulling something up out of her. And that lady's like, pull that stick out of me. It's hot. We are all talking about some bodily fluids in that moment. I was like, I made the best decision becoming
Right?
a social worker because I would never. So I have so much respect for nurses because the whole bodily fluid piece of the job is
Right.
not anything I could ever do. So my hat goes off to nurses and all that they put up with and do.
I agree because it's not for
Mm,
me. Yeah, it's not for
It's
me.
definitely not for me. I love that. But so thank your mama, thank your sisters because the work they do is important work and it's needed work. And we are so grateful for the nurses in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So you want to become a nurse, you get to Troy, you do all the things that people are wanting to get into it is a very coveted nursing program. It still is a very coveted
Mm-hmm.
nursing program. So that was big time when you got into the nursing program. And for you to choose to leave versus spelling out, that's even that's even better, right? But here you are, you have a rehabilitation degree.
I
And
have
so
a
I'm reading your
rehabilitation degree.
bio, and it's like you didn't even know what social work was until you worked as a case manager in community mental health. So tell me about your social work journey. How did you get here?
Right. So with my BS in rehabilitation, I was able to get a case management job at a community mental health agency. It's in a rural area, and still I'm thinking I'll go to school, I'll get my voc rehab, I'll do vocational rehabilitation counseling. That's what I was like, I'll just do that. So while working, I was working with a coworker who was a therapist, but he actually is an LPC. And he was like, no, don't do that. And I was like, well, I'll just do clinical mental health, so I can be a counselor. And he was like, no, do social work. He was like, social work is like a 2-for-1. You could do counseling, but you could do so much more. So I was like, okay. And I think at that time, Troy was up and coming with their social work program. It was still pretty new. So I signed up, and I was living in Tallahassee at that time, and there wasn't one in Troy at the main campus. It was in Dothan. So I was driving to Dothan every Monday. It was about an hour and a half commute almost, yeah, to get to school. So I started doing um social work, and I graduated in 2019, and I stayed at the agency, and I became a children's therapist. So that's kind of how I got my start. It was a coworker who was an LPC who steered me in the direction of a social work degree.
I love, you didn't know anything about it. This dude, shout out to him, whoever he is. He tells you about social work, and you're just like, bet, got you. I'm gonna drive an hour every day to finish this degree.
Yeah.
Did you ever fall in love with it, or did you just like, I mean, how did you know? Like, for some people, I know for me, the first social work class I took, I was like, oh, I'm home. And I hear people say that a lot. Like when they
Mhm.
get into that first class or first, field placement, they're like, oh, this is what I was meant to do. Did you,
Right.
since 2019, or even within your coursework, did you ever fall in love with the profession?
Yeah, I did. But it wasn't immediately, because my whole time I'm thinking I'm just gonna be a therapist. We had a MSW therapist at the agency. She was making, maybe this was 2017. She was making like $30,000. So that's all. I was just like, oh, okay, it'll be something, but it won't be larger than that. But when you get around other social workers who are passionate about the field, they make sure that you understand that it's levels to this. This is no ceiling. Like the sky is the limit. So once we started talking about just different avenues, because all I thought was mental health. I didn't know you could be a dialysis social worker or a school-based social worker, or I didn't know that was an option, because social work really wasn't um like talked about a lot while I was coming up, especially like during school when we was declaring majors and things. So I started like, oh, okay, I like this. I like this idea. Hospice. I think one of our instructors was a hospice social worker. I never knew that was a thing. Never knew. Dialysis, never knew that was a thing. And they were making great money. And they was making great money. And I'm like, oh, 30K. They was like, no. So, and then that's when we started talking about licensure, because they don't teach that in community mental health, because they know once you get your license, you're probably going to leave. Yeah, exactly. So that really wasn't something that was like pushed. I didn't even know anything about it. And then when I got in the program, they was like, oh no, don't stop there. I remember they were saying go they said it like go sideways, not up. Like don't try to get your PhD, but go this way, get your license. I was like, okay, because I was thinking I had to get my PhD to get some money. So, I got in there and I fell in love with it, because you take different classes, but diagnosing, psychopathology, that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is really good, because it still had like some nursing to me, like all the stuff that I felt like I learned, it didn't go in vain. And like medical terminology really helped me, because I knew some of this stuff, like medications and things like that. So it really felt like, okay, I can still do what I like, but in a way that suits me, like a way that's comfortable for me. So it definitely came. It definitely came.
Absolutely, I love that. And so you became a children's therapist after you got your MSW. You are Katrina Bentley, LMSW. So what was your licensing journey? Why did you decide? Because they hired you as an MSW. Doesn't sound like you needed your license
Mm-mm.
on your first job. So what ended up being your licensing journey?
So working at community mental health, and it was good. I really enjoyed it, but it was like that was it. I was gonna be a children's therapist, and that was it. It wasn't anything else other than that. I was talking to people who were retiring. They had put 20 years in the agency, and they were still a therapist, and nothing is wrong with that. But I'm like, wait a minute, y'all just told me how broad social work, the field of social work is, and you think I'm just gonna say I'm gonna be a children's therapist and that's it, the end? No, 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 no. Um, so I started, me and Indeed, we were like this. We were locked in. Indeed know me. They know me. They send me notifications like, hey, where you been? So I started dancing around. I ended up going to another community mental health agency, and I became a school-based therapist. So I was sitting inside the school, and I really enjoyed that. I really did. But it was 2020 when it happened. So COVID came, school shut down, and we got pushed back into the office, and we were they wanted us to do virtual. Well, I'm working with elementary children. It's so hard to keep them keep their attention virtually. So, at that point it started being more so I was just doing it to say I was working, and I wasn't really impacting my children. I wasn't really making a connection. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna check out. So I get back on Indeed. No, I started, one thing about social work, you will get a community. Like, you get a community of people. I was in Black Girl in Social Work on Facebook, and one of the girls mentioned that DHR was hiring. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try that. Of course, I feel like, I'm finna go ahead and pay my dues and earn my stripes and work with CPS. So I went on over there. And that's when they was like, hey, in order to maintain your title as a social worker, you have to earn your license. So they gave me about 6 months. They gave me the title as a social worker, but they put me on probation, and I had 6 months to get my license. And that was the hardest job I have ever experienced in my life. And I had to study for a test, and I passed. I passed. And doing the hardest thing that I to this day, I still remember that job. But I earned my license, and I was just like, okay, this is enough trauma for me. I want to go do something else. So I get back on Indeed, and here I am at a psychiatric unit. I'm a hospital, I'm a medical social worker now. And I will say by far that has been my favorite role. And I say that because you get to see that DSM-5 in real time. I've always, depression, anxiety, yeah, we see that daily, but schizophrenia and, auditory hallucinations and things like that, seeing that, agoraphobia, I've never heard of that. And like, just seeing people display these diagnoses that you've reading about, it's a type of experience that I'll never ever take for granted. It's invaluable. I still use that experience today. And that was good. I really enjoyed the job. It was more so like politics, and you run into that type of thing. And so I said, oh, let me get back on Indeed. So here I am on Indeed, and now I am a hospice social worker. So, hey, okay. Coming from a crisis stabilization unit to hospice was like a 180. It's slow. It was so slow, and the driving, and I was just like, yeah, like this. So I probably stayed there like 6 months, and I went and talked to my supervisor. I was like, yeah, this is. Mm-mm. She was like, yeah, I understand it's not for everyone. So I left there, and I went to CB. I started working from home. That's when I started my working from home journey. I started working for CVS, and I was doing utilization management. Never ever heard of this field. Didn't think it would be possible. This was a field that was tailored to nurses. Care management, Humana, CVS, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they really wasn't typically hiring social workers. Um, So when I got the role, it was in behavior health, and it was doing authorizations. And I learned some things, but I was just like, oh, this is like paperwork. This is very like secretary, like, oh, this is not for me. Here I go again, getting on it. I was maxing out that LMSW. Like I was trying to see what I could get, where I could go, and it worked. And I'm here now with Humana, making the most money I've ever made in my house. Stress. I ain't gonna say stress free because all jobs come with that, but I'm just in a really good space as far as my career, and I don't think the social worker that graduated and started off working as a children's therapist ever imagined being in this seat right now. Ever imagined that you could make the type of money that I'm making, because all I knew was 30K just to be a therapist. I didn't know LMSW. I didn't know, things like that. So that's how I got here as what am I? A behavior health specialist with Humana. That's how I got here.
You did such an amazing job retelling your social work journey. And even I know one of the last questions I'm going to ask, and I hope it doesn't uh, mess you up right now asking it, but one of the things that I love and so excited about having you on the podcast was because you have never been afraid of, because people will stay in jobs because they've been told, oh, you got to stay at a job for at least 2 years. I don't know who told them that. Who made
I
up
don't
that
know.
rule? I'm not sure who made that rule up, but people will stay in jobs because, like you said, the children's therapists, they did their time. They stayed in those jobs for 20 years and they're afraid to move on and see what else is out there. And I love how you said, I maxed out that LMSW. I wanted to see what it could do. Where did
Absolutely.
that come from? Because I want you to inspire, to encourage, to advise people who are staying at jobs that are not really lighting up their soul in any way, shape, or form, whether it's just through the duties, job roles and duties, and or even the money they're making. They're barely getting by.
Right.
Where did it come from for you to be able to not be scared, to be like, you know what, this isn't for me. Let me see what else is out there.
Oh, I'm not trying to be biased, but it definitely came from being in supervision with all the other guys. It came from being in supervision, and like I said, with social work, you will get or you should be a part of a network. And when I was at the hospital as a medical social worker, the other social worker was currently in supervision with you. And I was like, I just passed my test. I need to get in supervision. And she was like, oh, well, Miss Renita is doing supervision. I'm like, okay. And then also another woman that was in supervision, Tamika, and I knew her. We had worked together, and she was like, "Oh yes, Miss Renita is this and that. Like, come to supervision." So it really wasn't until I got in supervision and I got surrounded by other social workers who exposed me to different fields of social work, different we was transparent when it came to pay. I think that's a big thing that we have to do as social workers is be transparent about our pay. um we learn things about the fiscal year. Jobs in their budget beginning of October, that's a good time. We learned that you don't have to stay at a job for a year to put it on your resume. I was staying at job 6 months and I was still getting another one. And each job that I got, I was making more money than the last one. So just being around other encouraging people and just being inspired. I was nervous. I was scared. It wasn't a good feeling. I wasn't confident, just like, oh, I'm getting another job. I wasn't just like that. It didn't feel good to me because I'm like, oh goodness, Lord, what why am I still swimming? I felt like I had been just trucking, swimming, trying to find my footing. I was trying to find my pay. I was trying to find something that I could do that I love, but I also was being compensated for it. And I feel like now I'm floating. Like I feel like now I'm finally just able to say, hey, it did not go in vain. You did not, it paid off, but I don't think I would have had the courage, the knowledge, if I was not a part of supervision. I don't.
I appreciate that. I love supervision. I'm so glad that we've been able to be a part of your journey that's been over for a minute, but I love that. And one of the other things that I hope that you guys learn, I know you're going to say yes, but that LMSW, that license is mobile. I think, again, people are like, oh, I can only be an LMSW here. I got to stay here. See, to use like a credit card and take it places.
I
It
know.
wants to travel. It wants to see what's out there. And the other part, of that is be more loyal to that LMSW, whatever license you're at, level of license you're at, be more loyal to your level of license than a job because
Mhm.
jobs are going to come and go. They've been around before you became a social worker. They're going to be
Mhm.
around after you retire, long after you retire. How are you protecting your license in order for you to be able to go wherever that door
Right.
is unlocked by that particular credential? And that credential will get you into doors you didn't even know were possible. So protect it at all cost.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
something we did not play about in supervision.
Still don't play
Not
about
your
that.
license, not my license, not her license. Like we didn't play about nobody license
We
in
don't play about
supervision.
licenses. Yes, because being able to now be licensed in multiple states and just seeing what my license has opened up for me. I was not licensed for the first 10 years of my social work career. Where I am now, you wouldn't
Mhm.
even believe it because it took quantum leaps once I
Mhm.
decided to go ahead and pursue my license. I've been now licensed, clinically for over a decade now, but the door is
Yeah.
immediately opened. And so, just protecting your license at all costs will get you
Yeah.
into doors you didn't even know possible. Then if you don't like them, peace.
And go find something better. Like
Because it's out there, because it
yes.
is out there. I love that. You know, I see where you are and how you got here, but what have you been thinking about? Because I love you. Y'all know I love me a good old vision board. Have you been thinking about your vision for the future? Where do you want to go in your social work career?
Oh yeah, I have been thinking about it. I'm taking my test, my clinical license before the year is out. So I'm currently licensed in Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And that's all on Humana's dime. They pay for that. Anytime I need anything, they pay for everything. So I say that to say that, there are jobs out there that value us and what we do. So of course I want to take my clinical license, but it's just so much I still want to do. Like I want to be an actual school social worker. We had a girl in supervision that did that, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to try that. So it's just many different things that I want to try. And I'm just at a space now that I still want to explore. I don't want to just say, well, I'm going to do that and retire. Because I remember like growing up, it was always preached to us that the VA, that's where you gotta go. You gotta go to the VA if you want to make some money. And I done turned down like 3 interviews for the VA because I'm like, nah, I'm making the money that you're trying to pay me, and I have more my peace, whatever. So, and I'm doing what I like. I don't have to just work with a specific group of clients to make a decent living. I don't. So um, it's just many things I want to dip my head in. I want to tap into HR one day. You just never know what I want to do, but I just want to be able to stay teachable, and just enjoy the journey on its way.
I love
I,
that. Stay teachable.
yeah, I just want to stay teachable and just learn through the experience. I probably just invest in my own 401k in retirement because I might not retire from a job. Just gonna be out here.
You know what? I have, I'm so grateful that I get to travel and I'm not a travel social worker, like I'm not with an agency. And
Hmm.
one of my colleagues, he said, you created your own travel social work position. You, you work where you want to. And that's what
Right. I
this
love
feels
that.
like is that you are creating your own path. You're not beholden to, well, my parents did it this way, or I saw other people do it. And it started with you even just changing, you breaking the cycle, the mold, hats off to nursing, but and the work that your sister and mom did. But even you breaking the mold and saying, yeah, I don't think that one's for me, and not
Right.
feeling beholden to do something just because people who came before you did it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing with your social work career, is even though you may not have seen other people doing it, one, there is a tribe of folks who are doing it. You just got to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I'm doing this thing. And then two, it doesn't have to look like anything anybody else is doing.
Right. Right.
I wrote down, you could be Humana spokesperson. They need to put you on a company
Right. I'm gonna
commercial.
pitch that to my leader.
You really should. You should be a humana spokesperson. Love that you're in love with social. I feel your passion. I'm so glad that you said yes to coming on the podcast just to help expand the mind of what you can do and be and have in social work. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, as you know, according to the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics, social work is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States. And what we know to be true is that we are on the front line for some of the toughest crises this nation has faced. Katrina, can you give me an example or some examples of your frontline experience as a social worker?
Yes. I probably have a couple, but I'll just be general with it. But my time as a foster care social worker, we seen in real time people losing their children, or we seen in real time um children like, why can't I go home to my mom, or why my mom didn't show up for the visit. So I seen these wasn't like referrals that we're getting and we're going to make outreach to the client. Like, we're actually in the moment with them, or we're sitting in court while the judge tell a parent, no more, you don't have any more paternal rights or any parental rights or anything like that. So just being there in the moment, seeing raw, real experiences, and I think that has definitely shaped my outlook on social work and just shaped me who I am as a social worker. Because we have to remember, like, we have to meet people where they are, but sometimes we're meeting people in their most vulnerable state. And so just having to see that, like, substance abuse, and even when I was on the crisis unit, seeing people um at the brink of suicide, where they tried, but it didn't work, it failed. But seeing people at that point where they feel like they're at their lowest, and just being present in that moment, you don't is there there's no book that tells you, like, well, after this you say this. No, you have to have a passion for that, because it flows naturally, and clients can tell. They'll be able to spot, like, are you just doing this, or is it really a passion? So I definitely have some of those front lines experience that I'll always keep near and dear to me. But it was just real raw and uncut, like in child welfare, when you seeing it right then in that moment.
Whew. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for the work, because I've not ever worked for DHR facts, but my hat has always, been tipped to those workers who do, because that takes a special kind of individual to do that work,
I
especially
agree.
those of us who also have degrees in social work, because we've been trained a certain way. We have certain
Mhm.
values that we're trying to stand by. And to do that in that work environment,
Mhm.
that takes a special kind of person. So
It does.
thank you for the work you do. But also, I was thinking about, like, when I was teaching and I taught social work 101, one of the first questions I would ask the students, new students, especially in the 2-year program, why you want to become a social worker? And they would
Mhm.
be like, because I want to help people. And I'm like, do you really know what that means?
Yeah.
I heard somebody call it the underbelly, getting in the underbelly with these folks and
Mhm.
thinking that you are not going to be scathed, that you are not going to be, some way, shape, or form shaped by those experience with those folks. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it sounds like sunshine and rainbows. Oh, I want to help
I
people.
want to people with my clipboard and put my nice clothes on. Oh no, it's bigger than that.
It is so it is. It's the depths of society that social workers are going into. And
Mhm.
for you to do it over and over and over again. And also just listening, reflecting back on your social work journey, you didn't quit the profession, you just quit the job. You knew that social work was the profession for you, even though the job didn't fit or was tough or hard or wasn't the population you wanted. You didn't leave the profession and be like, I'm just not going to do this. You left that particular population and or
Yeah.
that job until you found the right position for now, because I know
Mhm.
you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Until until you found the right position for you for now. So that is beautiful. Katrina, what is one belief about social work that you started on this journey with that you feel has changed the most for you?
It's so cliche, but I was one of those ones that bought into that you be in it for the outcome and not the income. And you're supposed to make a difference, and what they say, the rest will take care of itself. Okay, well, we know that the bills do not take care of themselves. So I did enter social work on the understanding that I probably wasn't gonna make much money. Like I knew it, and I still signed up because I'm like, this is still what I want to do. But again, once I got around a community of people and I was exposed to different things and just increase my knowledge, I realized that that's false. You can be in it for the income and the outcome. So that's one thing that has changed. And open your mouth and negotiate. So
Absolutely. And you said something I didn't want to skip over it earlier. Salary transparency within the profession.
mhm,
Because if we're not talking about what these organizations and agencies are offering us and are asking, Brittany did a podcast episode a while back, Brittany Fitzor, and she said she'll call and ask people she knows who's worked in agencies or agency like that and say, hey, does this salary range sound good
mhm.
to you in regards to asking? They're like, yeah, yeah, go. And or just ask them outright,
What did you
what are
make?
you
Yeah.
making?
I don't
Exactly.
understand the problem. Just
People are
tell it.
so because corporations and agencies have taught us, even some folks have said it's in the policy that you're
Right.
not supposed to talk about. I'm like, show me that policy. Where is
Mhm,
it written? And as social workers, that's the questions we need to be asking. Show me the
mhm.
policy. Show me the policy. Show me the policy. And if
And
it
why
is
is that in there?
challenge,
That
that's
makes you,
exactly what I was gonna
yeah.
say. And if it is, challenge it.
Yeah.
Why would I get reprimanded for talking about my salary to someone who's working the same position and challenging it? And that is what we signed up to be social, to change policy, to make an
Mhm,
impact. So I love that you brought it kind of back again. Open your mouth to negotiate, but before you even negotiate, be informed. And you get informed by asking questions. Ask other social workers who've worked in those agencies. Do your Glassdoor, Indeed, become
mhm,
BFFs with it because Indeed will put the salary of other or similar jobs, and then be bold. Be
mhm.
bold with it. So I love that your mindset has changed, and not just your mindset, but your behavior, your action, and the proof is in the pudding. You've said a
Right.
couple of times, making the most money I've ever made.
I'm
So
proud of
good.
that.
You should be. You should be. Oh man, we're already at the end. It was so good. You did so good. You're so articulate. You're just an amazing interviewee. But Katrina, what advice would you give to social workers who are going to be entering the field over the next few years? Or even if it's not to them, even if it's just to the OGs like me. Any words of wisdom that you want to just leave us with today?
I would encourage, like, especially the up and coming social workers or just social workers who are in the field, to do some self-reflection, um, self-evaluation, self-reflection, because when we work in these fields, we work with other professionals and we work with clients from different backgrounds, different personalities. Um, and it will bring things out of you that you didn't even know you had an issue with. triggers, things you thought you suppressed or things you thought that you had worked on, it will come out some kind of way and it will pull you. I dealt with a lot of like insecurities that I didn't even know I had because I was being challenged by other professionals and I hadn't done like a lot of work on myself. So I would get offensive. I mean, I would get defensive. I would, my self-esteem dropped, and I was just like, "What's going on with that?" So once I realized I had to do some self-evaluation, some self-reflection, and just have that talk with myself in the mirror, I feel like I can stand on 2 feet. I feel like I can hold my head up, look you in the eye, and then we can, have a conversation. But that would be something I would say, do some self-reflection, because when we work with a lot of different personalities, and even if you're not working in mental health, you're going to be working with mental health, if that makes sense. So I don't want you to think just, oh no, because I work with dialysis, or you're going to be working with mental health, and you're going to be working with different people. So do some self-reflection, and that way you can just be more self-aware.
Oh, you just dropped a whole word. That was so good. And because my favorite social workers are social workers who have therapists.
Right.
Right. But it's not even just our clients, though, Katrina. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I would just quickly say it's the people who we work with. There's our colleagues, it's other social workers. People come into this profession because they see something like heal or heal thyself. So a lot of folks are coming from wounded backgrounds, and then we're just bleeding not all over our clients, but all over our colleagues and our coworkers. And so you being the type of social worker that doesn't burn out easily and is able to have longevity in this career, in this field, I definitely think are ones who are able to do self-reflection, and self-reflection with help, which means
Mm-hmm.
a therapist.
Therapy. Get some professional help. It's
Yes,
okay.
don't leave it up to your friends to be your therapist. That's
Right.
not fair to them. Katrina, you just dropped a bunch of gems. You really did.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. It has
Of
just been such a
course.
joy. Yeah,
Thank you for having me. I feel like this is our duty as social workers to make sure we're giving back, because we don't know who watch these podcasts or who needs some inspiration or who just needs somebody to keep it real. That yeah.
absolutely. One of the people that I talk to all the time, she mentioned she listens to the podcast. And I was like, oh. And so you're absolutely right. We don't know who's listening.
Mhm.
And so to be able to have these types of discussions, I hope really does. And that was the whole point of the podcast, was to encourage and inspire other social workers. And I think you did an amazing job tonight. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you like this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.